The question is, how hard is it going to be to bounce back from the worst job numbers since the Great Depression? Alfredo Ortiz joins me now, who's CEO of the Job Creators Network. Alfredo, good to have you back. What are we going to have to do to get this economy going and head back to where we were before the China virus arrived?
Yeah, that's right, Lars. I mean, if you think about today, the numbers are horrific, really. 15% unemployment, really, some of the greatest numbers since the Great Depression. So this is about as real as it gets. And if you can imagine what the numbers would have looked like, by the way, without the P, the Paycheck Protection Program, which is estimated to save 30 million jobs, just imagine how bad the number today would have been if it hadn't been for that. So part is we need to continue to work on a vaccine, first and foremost, and also the therapeutics. I actually really believe therapeutics is just so critical right now, much more so than even tracing at this point, and testing, because right now I think people would feel at least a little bit better to know that there's something that will help them feel better if they get sick. And then, of course, something to prevent them from getting sick overall, which would be the vaccine. But right now that's what we need. And then I think we also need, Lars, we need industry to really be able to come up with standardized protocols across the different industries so consumers and employees feel safe either going back to work or going back to their favorite restaurant or cinema or whatever it is, but basically leaving their home and knowing that if there is a problem out there, if they're infected in some way, shape, or form, there's a cure, or even better, that they get a vaccine and that they won't be impacted at all. But we have to do something. There is no choice. We also have to open up the economy at the same time. And I know you mentioned that the staggering numbers and the death rates stuff we're looking at. But again, how much longer do we keep an economy closed? I think the reality is we just can't do that because we've already spent to date $7 trillion, trillion with a T, not a B, trying to keep the economy afloat. We just can't keep doing this.
No, we can't. But I guess one of the things I think about, and I've been suggesting this from the beginning, I think private business needs to show the government how to get it done rather than the government trying to define how it works. For instance, in my neck of the woods, one of the governors just said, well, here's the plan. And she laid out a plan, and it's not necessarily a bad plan. I can't argue with most of it. Sounds like common sense. If you're going to open your business, keep your customers 6 feet apart. Okay, I get that. Make sure your staff wears masks and gloves. Make sure you wipe things down. I mean, they could have just said use common sense, but I guess the government says we have to lay everything out. I'm sure for some businesses, they're going to find those rules don't go near far enough, and they have to do more. For some of them, they'll find out maybe it's more of a restriction than you actually have to have. The guy or gal who works in a one-man band office and says, am I supposed to wear gloves and a mask while I'm sitting here by myself if I'm not actually dealing with customers in person? And an awful lot of small businesses are single-man or single-woman operations. So what do we need to do to get the confidence back? Because, Alfredo, one of the things I've noticed, Georgia was one of the first states to start saying, okay, you can go back to business. And what I hear from people in Georgia, I talked to one just the other night, who said, look, we've got a lot of businesses open, but a lot of customers aren't coming back right away because they're a little tentative. I know there's been a very loud group of people saying, open it up again, thinking that the minute it does, customers will flood back into the private marketplace. I don't know that that's necessarily true. Some of the national polls say people are going to be a little bit tentative, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, letting the customer decide, when do I want to come back? And I'm not even sure. Alfredo, have you taken an airplane flight recently? And what would it take to get you back on an airplane right now?
I actually have, Lars, and it's a little freaky because, first of all, there aren't too many people on the plane. That particular plane had 10 folks on a 747, and there's nobody at the airport.
What?
Everything's closed down. All the concessions, everything's closed down.
Wow.
But I had full-on mask and gear and gloves and you name it, and hand sanitizer, and I didn't go to the bathroom the whole flight.
I hope it wasn't too long a flight, Alfredo. That sounds like and if you're on a 747, they usually put those on the longer run. So don't drink when the drink cart comes by if you're not planning to use the head.
By the way, there's no.
Oh, that's right.
There's no food. There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing actually. So it's about as bare as it gets. But you hit on something exactly, Lars. It's not only a supply issue. It's not just about getting the doors open and getting small business owners and just business owners overall feeling comfortable to open those doors, but it's getting the consumer, the employees feeling comfortable that it's okay to either work at that establishment or visit that establishment. So it's a two-pronged challenge. I don't think it's something we've ever faced as a country, because it's just across every single industry, right? People just are fearful. And you're right. You see the rallies out there where you see a lot of folks saying, open up the economy, open up society, et cetera. But, when you look at the polls, I think overall people are still hesitant. They're still concerned about their health and well-being. And so that's why we need to address that. But this is not an easy issue. And frankly, I think this president probably has one of the toughest challenges that any president has ever had, because he can continue to keep it closed and be safe about it. And guess what? Hundreds of thousands of people could potentially die just from related things from unemployment. Suicide rates, for example, are going to go through the roof. Domestic abuse, alcoholism, drug abuse. I mean, I read somewhere that alcohol sales are up like 1,000%.
Yep.
I mean, this is just,
isn't that amazing?
This can't be good for society.
Alfredo, I got to tell you, when the government said, we're only going to let essential businesses operate, but one of those essential businesses, the liquor store, where most states make huge amounts of money, they said, liquor is, of course, essential in America. And I said, no, it's essential because you get a lot of cash from it. Alfredo, keep up the good work. What's the website? JobCreatorsNetwork.com, JobCreatorsNetwork.com, Lars. Thank you.